Make them more tactical. Let's go with black.
So it's no secret that Hollywood loves remakes. They take the pressure off the executives behind them, there's a proven audience, box office numbers to compare, the continuing DVD sales are there. They need arguably less development than an original film. But aren't most remakes bad? Well, yeah, recently it ain't been so great. We've seen a fair few ranging from the decidedly average to the just plain who thought this was a good idea. And the amount of reboots we've had is pretty overwhelming as well. But I don't want to go into how remakes and reboots and all that are all bad, as the truth is they aren't. In fact, some of my favourite films are remakes. What I want to talk about is when is it really right to remake a film? Like a lot of people, I'd almost every time wish for an original film over a remake, especially from my favourite directors, but there are times it makes sense creatively if done for the right reasons. To a studio, taking an old property like, for example, RoboCop and updating it for a new audience is a very attractive prospect. We own this property, it still makes us money, people have a lot of love for it, so let's bring it back. RoboCop was a bit of a dud. It didn't fare too well critically, although it wasn't the worst remake, it was just decidedly average. It was put together by committee, the director was hired after development, the whole thing was very carefully micromanaged throughout. It wasn't made with love as much as with a target, a release date, a successful box office figure they wanted to hit, and they could also hide behind the fact that it had a built-in audience in case it all went wrong. They weren't to blame. There isn't much more to say about that way of developing a remake, as frankly a lot of people have done that already. No, I want to talk about when creatively it makes sense. When should you remake a film? Well, when someone is truly passionate about what they can do with that property. When a film like The Crow, a pretty beloved and decent film that isn't so old, seemingly cannot get made with an almost farcically prolonged development process and revolving door of stars and directors, you just feel that there is no passionate force behind it, and nobody that really wants to see it that badly. Obviously someone wants to get it made, but where is the dedicated artistic vision doing all it can to will it into existence? Almost every decent original film has that, but remakes don't seem to as much. Well, not all of them. Sometimes someone behind the scenes really wants that film to be remade. There is a passion, a drive, a story they want to tell utilizing that original film that means something to them. Typically they're flawed films, seen much earlier in life, ones that left a mark on the director or writer. The affected artists have a new concept for the film, a markedly different take, an appreciation for the core ideas in the original, but also an appreciation for the inherent issues within the same work as well. They want to take that story, those characters, the concept, and not only update it, but create something they know is better, that will connect more strongly, that gives them something to say as a storyteller for their age. Loving a great film and being inspired by it is different to wanting to remake it. Taking someone else's film, someone else's story, and retelling it in your own way is a bold act. It deserves to be done with a careful hand, with reverence. Many viewers make clear their distaste for the stream of remakes, and the poor ones generally don't do well. Ones with clear love and affection and inventiveness, they do find audiences, at least at some point. Will the Point Break remake ever find an audience? I'm not so sure. Remakes and reboots seem sometimes like a terrible idea until they actually come out as genuinely good films. If a film is good, regardless of how audiences felt about it before, they will forgive its genesis and status as a reboot or remake. You just have to go into development for the right artistic reasons. Often the original property's director will feel the remake was unnecessary, ignoring of course directors that remake their own films. It is their vision, it was their baby at one point. George A. Romero doesn't like the Dawn of the Dead remake because it strayed so far from his satirical concept, and why the mall setting was so important in 1978 but less so in 2004. For me, as simply an audience member, James Gunn and Zack Snyder did a good job with the script and film respectively, and created something that I feel deserves to exist. They didn't do a rushed hack job like the horrendous Day of the Dead remake, but instead really put a clear amount of effort into the film. You can feel it, and arguably the reason zombie films are so goddamn big again right now is partially due to this film. Romero isn't happy with it, which is understandable, but at least you can feel they did a decent amount to make their version worthy. There is a difference between saying you have passion for remaking something and actually proving that as well. I am very excited by the idea of Denis Villeneuve taking on the remake of Dune, because he wants to go back to the book. He wants to look at what is undeniably a classic story and an important one to him, that he felt was not as well served by David Lynch's version. He has a need to tell his version of that story. When Len Wiseman spoke of going back to adapt We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, instead of just lifting from Verhoeven's violent sci-fi classic Total Recall, I was cautiously optimistic. I didn't rate Wiseman too highly as a director, but he was saying all the right things. When I watched the very poor film, I also saw a lot of stuff very blatantly torn from Verhoeven's film. He was saying the right things, but in the end, the passion for that original work wasn't really there behind the scenes.
If I'm not me, who the hell am I?
A work that is flawed, such as Dune, makes sense to come back to the big screen because that first go around simply wasn't that great. Total Recall? Why remake it? Why bother? They're apparently going back to the well with Starship Troopers now too, adapting the original book's more right-wing fascist tone over Verhoeven's left-wing satire. For me, how they could ever make a better film than Starship Troopers is beyond me. It's a classic. Verhoeven got there first and nailed it. Leave it alone. Then again, there are some films out there I'm glad are coming back. Highlander with John Wick director Chad Stahelski on board makes absolute sense to me. The first is a cult film, but come on, it ain't great. It's likeable enough and the concept is very interesting, but the original film, I want to see what someone else with Stahelski's skill can do with its ideas. Did I need to see what a great director like Spike Lee could do with Oldboy? No, because that film is goddamn perfect. Passion and care and a respect for the original is what you need, along with the choice of film, one that it makes sense to have a go at doing again. If that film is flawed, if it flat out doesn't work, or if it has tinges of greatness let down by budget or poor execution, and you have a way to better it, to improve upon it, then go for it. Remake Psycho shot for shot? What is the point? Infernal affairs as The Departed? I'll go for that. So, what would you remake? What film did you grow up loving, but think could be improved? How would you do it? Personally, I'd have another crack at The Valley of Gwangi. Cowboys capturing dinosaurs for the circus? That's a concept I would love to see again. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe, helps immensely, and see you again soon.